Hello, my honeys. This is Kamara with the Black Dove Oracle, and this is another channeled message. I've been listening to Spirit a lot lately. It was my birthday yesterday, and when I'm filming this is in July. So I did some automatic writing for myself. I like to connect with my future self, my higher self. And it's just interesting, like when you are in communion with that future self, you realize, well, I start to realize that I listen to my future self a lot. I listen to my highest self a lot. Like I've gotten into the practice of that, and I start to like understand her voice, and I realize, oh, okay, this is so familiar, so on point. She's very encouraging and supportive of me. And so it's interesting because I did that last night, and her energy has just kind of hung around. And, I was thinking of another reading I was going to do. And then I just got the message, do another channeled message on the star you were meant to be. So this is going to be 3 groups. And you can take these messages where they resonate. They are coming from spirit, my guides. Sometimes they're coming from your guides if they show up during the reading. I am clairaudient, so I can really tap into the different energies that I'm sensing. And it's kind of like a frequency, it's a very interesting thing. Hard to explain. But yeah, and I think I have other clairs, but that is my strongest, being able to hear spirit in all of its forms. So, if you're here, there is something perhaps you need to hear in one of these channeled messages. And again, there will be 3 groups. So let me put up group number 1. I was told to get this special deck that I don't really use very often. I think someone gifted it to me a while ago. It's called Goddesses Knowledge Cards. Very cute, beautiful deck, mainly featuring the artwork of Susan Seddon Boulay. I think she died of cancer a long time ago, but you see a lot of her artwork around. It's just very beautiful, very ethereal. So I was directed to use this deck to get the opening kind of energy of the star you were meant to be. So group 1, let's get started. I'm hearing that I need to do a little sound therapy here. Very interesting. I didn't even break these out. I haven't broken these out on any of the readings that I've been doing, but I have some tuning forks. And earlier this year, I went to a sound healing training at Ghost Ranch in New Mexico. And if you know that place, the original name of that ranch was the Ranch of the Brujas. I love that. So let's start with group number 1. Okay, group number 1. The star that you were meant to be. Athena. It says here on the card, Athena is presented by the Greeks as a virgin goddess of war and wisdom. a symbol of courage and friendship. She often counsels warriors to gentleness. She is especially honored as a goddess of agriculture, the creator of the olive tree, the flute, the ship, goldsmithing. I said gold mining, but it's goldsmithing, and shoemaking. And she's also the goddess who introduced the yoke for the oxen and the bridle for the horse. She is a patron of all useful and elegant arts. In Greek mythology, Artemis is said to have breathed soul into men created by Prometheus and have helped Prometheus steal fire from heaven to give to men. Athena is a wonderful affirmation that there's no limits to what a woman can do with her intellect and creative ability. I think this is so fitting, group number one, because if you're looking at the images in front of you, I'm kind of going left to right. But, if you have an image that's calling you, just know that that's okay. But the group number one, the far left image, I was told to put a star on top of this being's head, like where the crown, well, we have the crown chakra, which is actually kind of at the scalp, but there is also the soul chakra, which is right above that. And there's something about you, group number one, that I believe you are so intelligent and at the same time highly underestimated. I think it's because of your looks. And it could be, Spirit is saying your looks could range from something being highly sought after looks, the conventional beauty, or you could be on the other end of the spectrum, a very unconventional beauty. At the same time, the beauty is always shining through. And there's something about your beauty that lets people form an opinion quite early when they first meet you. It's as if they're so captivated by that energy that they really don't see the offerings that you bring. Because your offerings are really quite functional. They're quite practical. Some of you may even describe yourself as pragmatic, which is kind of, I don't know, Spirit is kind of smiling about that. Because Spirit says you also are so highly attuned to the spirit world. Yeah, Spirit is kind of showing me, and this might be very specific for someone. And because Spirit is saying sometimes you wonder why you watch these readings, why you listen to these readings. Some of you might even at some points in your life, maybe even currently, can you consider yourself an atheist? Like you're just like, I like to see what I get and get what I see. And at the same time that you're saying all of this, you navigate the world very attuned to your intuition. And that intuition, it's something that people who are very close to you, they start to understand you are very wise in this way. And when you're the person who everyone observes, if you don't do something that everyone else is doing, the people close to you are like, oh, they take a step back too. They're like, oh, group number one's not doing that. Maybe I should hold back too. Because over and over again, you have proven, and this is something you might have said, it's just your judgment. You're like, it's not any hocus pocus. I'm just using my judgment. I'm just looking around. I'm just, calculating things. That's how you see it, group number one. Whereas other people, because you've got to know your beauty and whether it's conventional or unconventional, it puts a kind of Neptunian haze over people. They can't see past it. So your brilliance, your intelligence is often not seen, or it's misconstrued for being highly magical. And maybe for some of you, this frustrates you. Because you're like, no, I am smart. Like, I do know how to use my intelligence. I, some of you might be highly educated, even though Spirit's saying that's not really what it's talking about when it talks about your intelligence. But yeah, you don't gamble much in your life. You're very careful, group number one. I think it could come from early childhood experiences of you needing to be very aware of the adults around you. Maybe some of you were in households where the adults or caregivers around you, something was happening with their moods. It could be anything from, trigger warning, but, they could have been alcoholics, or they could have just not managed their anxiety well and had real changeable moods. Whatever it was, as a small child, you began to realize that it was better for you to learn and navigate around those moods. So, of course, that is a behavior, a skill that kept up with you. And so you're very observant of your environment. Even if you don't want to be, it's kind of like when you step into new spaces, you're always taking stock of who's where and who's who gets more respect, who gets less respect, who's happy, who's kind of not happy. You're analyzing people's facial expressions. You're kind of seeing what the social interactions are like. And I know for some of you, you would say this feels like a trauma reaction. For you, it is a survival mechanism. Sorry for the noise. I was trying to adjust this mic here. For you, it's a survival mechanism. And yeah, maybe you have in the past gone to therapy or tried to work on some healing around being, for you, some of you, it feels hypervigilant. For others of you, it just feels like a natural intake or assessment of your environment. Yeah, because you also balance out your judgment with compassion. So it's not like you're observing to judge, you're observing to figure out where you can lean in more with compassion. And in other ways, you're there to understand how to keep yourself safe in certain situations. Some of you may be involved in the legal field, even. You like to think about the laws of nature as the law. So many of you, some of you are lawyers, some of you are in the legal field in other ways. Maybe you're even a judge. I mean, you like the law because there's something kind of finite in some of it. And there's other ways in which you mix it with your intuition, which is very interesting. I'm just picking up on someone specifically who might be in the legal field. You don't always stick to the black and white. And I think some of your colleagues like your thought patterns. They like the way that you think. You have been able to help people navigate the law in very unique ways, whoever I'm picking up on. If you're not in the legal field, it just means that you know how to distribute and manage power in whatever position you're in. Many of you in this group your star is leadership. That's what Spirit is saying. Either you're a leader now, or you're on your way to being a leader, or it is something that is in your vision. or people naturally put you in that position. You are a leader, and that is the star you were meant to be. You were meant to guide people. And I keep hearing the word in a very pragmatic way. I keep hearing in a very grounded, sound way. And that is why people feel comfortable with you. Because truly, I just picked the Queen card here. It says, radiates the regal feminine, uses her benevolent authority to protect others. Now, regardless of gender, you are in that kind of royal energy. You do not use your power to keep people subjugated. In fact, you use your power, you use your authority to help people realize their own. And you're highly protective of the people who, I'm hearing you're highly protective of the people who report to you or work for you or who are younger than you. If it comes to your family, you are a protective force. There's nothing more irritating to you, maybe frustrating, maybe something that angers you, are people taking advantage of their authority. And you're one of these people that will, group number one, you will confront that. You will make sure that people are accountable for abuses of authority. And in that way, your star shines so bright. And here's something that's quite interesting, because I'm going to go back to your looks. I don't know why Spirit is focusing on this, because many of the people who don't really know you, who judge you simply because of your looks, and Spirit is showing me, it does not have to mean that you are a model. Some of you have more curves. Some of you might identify as fat. Some of you may identify as super thin. It's a kind of physicality mixed with your energy that many people feel like is a trick. It's almost like you're a trickster, because they assume something by the way you embody this vehicle called the body. They assume something about you, and I don't know what that is, because I think it's different in all cases. But what you do is you transcend convention. You transcend, they can't predict you. Somebody will say, oh, there's no such thing as booty owls. I was saying, I don't know where booty came from, but anyway, beauty and brains. A lot of people don't believe those two things can exist in one form. Some people have, as we know, we live in a very fat phobic society. So some people will think that someone who is fat, they have their own prejudgments about that. So when they meet you, when they get to know you, group number one, it's like you blow all of those conventions out of the water. And I think in the past, Spirit is saying, you may have taken some of those judgments, some of those slights, some of the even gossip about you to heart, because I believe what starts to happen is people see that you are the whole package, that you, over the years, you've become confident in yourself. But, back in the day, people would grow jealous of you because you were the whole package, or you were confident regardless of how you looked, and you demanded respect, and you presented your ideas without hesitation. That had many people confronting themselves because their insecurities would come up around you. And instead of just kind of sitting with that and investigating it, you were often, at times, the subject of gossip. And it was around people trying to kind of keep you down or take you down. Very interesting. Spirit is showing that some of you have had quite a few experiences with frenemies and enemies. People who to your face might have said, I really admire your leadership. I admire how you're just upfront. Because many of you are very upfront, direct, grounded in your approach. Again, that word pragmatic comes away. But you're that way. So when someone kind of encounters you with smoke and mirrors or any kind of BS, you're just going to be like calling it in. You're going to call it out, rather. And so, these people will sometimes, depending on their level of insecurity, go on some personal vendetta to bring you down, to try to hurt your reputation. But Spirit is saying they've never been able to quite do that, have you? Have they? There's something here about you being a representative of the divine, that you are a guide for people. And that part of your reputation is undisputed. Group number 1. Undisputed. And so it keeps everyone who really knows you, they know that your work heals people. Whether or not you consider yourself a healer or not, your work is very healing to people. It's about your energy. It's about the way that you personally are aligned, mind, body, and spirit. It inspires people to be the same, to operate in that same kind of energy. Group number 1. Some of you are very proud of your heritage and your culture. And your culture, depending on where you live, might be subjugated, might be oppressed. And so you're one of these people that holds your head up really high. You refuse to be oppressed or subjugated. So that's for someone out there. But your star is quite clearly group number 1. One that either you now embrace or you will be embracing. So let's get a closing message from Spirit here. Because you indeed are someone who many look up to, which is hence the star. So your closing message, you've got a couple. The waterfall, inner power, unbridled confidence, claiming your place. Very appropriate, right? I love when Spirit does that. Follow the stream, dedication, trust, future rivers, future oceans. Yes, Spirit is saying here, to close with you, group number 1, that this leadership style of yours will take you very far. You will discover new rivers and new oceans, meaning you will begin to discover even new places to exercise this leadership, places that maybe you haven't considered before. And in that, your success really will be on trusting your inner power and continuing to be very confident in who you are and why you belong on the ground that you stand on. And that might just be for you to understand. You don't have to prove that to other people. But Spirit is saying there's a way in which your confidence really roots you in who you are and why you do what you do. And don't let anyone ever bring you to question that. They can question it all they want, but never let them bring you to question that. Okay, group number 1, I felt that. I felt your confidence. I felt your strength. Very, very awesome. And thank you. Thank you for being here, for those of us who need to learn this skill still. You're a master of it. Okay, so we're going to close you out, group number 1. And if this resonated, or if you like the way that these channel messages are presented, would you consider giving this reading a thumbs up, as well as consider subscribing to my channel? It's brand new, and I welcome a deeper connection with you, group number 1. Okay. Okay, so we are now going to head into group number 2. And if you're just joining me here, you just went directly to the timestamps. Welcome. I'm Kamara with the Black Dove Oracle. And I've started to do more of these channeled messages because really that's what I do a lot on my TikTok. I don't know, what do you call it? A profile channel? I don't know. TikTok account. It's called Rooted Futures, rooted_futures, if you want to check it out. It's much shorter channeled messages and just musings from spirit usually, and other stuff. You don't have to check it out. I mean, it's just something where I do a lot of channeling. So, group number 2, we are starting out with a card for you. And then we will channel more of Spirit's messages. So the star that you were meant to be, it is not saying that you're not that star yet, but the star that you were meant to be. This might be a affirmation, a confirmation for someone, or this could be affirming a vision you have for yourself. So group number 2, what I got was Eagle Woman, and I'm using this goddess deck. It says, despite the fact that the life-giving and death-wielding bird goddess is one of the oldest representations of the goddess eagle, has been usually linked to the masculine. The eagles have usually been linked to the masculine. With a few exceptions, the Sphinx of Egypt had wings of an eagle, and the Aztec goddess Chiacotl, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, was also called Eagle Woman. This Eagle Woman shows a new marriage of the feminine and the eagle. She represents all an eagle stands for: spirit, valor, majesty, renewal, accuracy of sight, spiritual aim, and the ability to soar to the heights. She holds in her hands a vessel, a traditional symbol of the feminine, from which she receives, contains, and nourishes. Here, both sets of values are joined, emblematic of different combinations of strength that are part of being woman-born. Eagle Woman is a joyful affirmation of our ability to break out of millennial-old stereotypes and find a different definition that embraces the entire continuum of being alive. She teaches that women can express qualities of the eagle while continuing to contain and nurture. Ooh, very powerful. So group number 2, I think that's very interesting that they reference that in your hands you hold the representation of the power of the eagle. And I was told to put like 2 stars in the middle being's hands when it came to finishing off the graphics. And what's interesting about you, Spirit is saying, is that for you, group number 2, you hold a very unique balance of the masculine and feminine energy. You are considered very strong by anyone who would identify you as an opposite sex. You know what I mean? And it's kind of like you hold balance. If I was to say you were a particular symbolized by a particular tarot card, it would be temperance. It's like in all situations, even in all relationships, group number 2, Spirit is showing me that you like to hold the balance. Some of you might be Libra. You could be Gemini too. You like to hold the balance of things. You like to hear both sides. You're not satisfied with just hearing one side. If someone came to you and they said, that person over there, they're not a good person, you would take in what they said and you would consider the person communicating that, but you would also go and investigate for yourself. Is that really true? Let me see. It's you're the kind of person, especially Spirit is showing me, when it comes to gossip, when it comes to hearsay, you're the kind of person that gets more curious when you hear something that's not too favorable about someone, especially if you hear it more than one time. You're like, oh, I'm very curious now. You never take it just on those accounts because you are a person who likes to make up their own mind, group number 2. And in many ways, that feeds the star of who you are. Eagle, in as an animal totem, is the person that sees from a higher perspective. And so eagle woman means that your perspective is not only seen through your physical eyes, but you also see from a very higher spiritual perspective. Many people admire you, group number 2, for this perspective. Yeah. They see that you challenge belief systems that are outdated and outmoded. And you challenge people to release negative thoughts they have. I don't know why I was hearing this earlier from Spirit, and I was like, I wonder what group this is. But Spirit was saying that you are a person who really knows the subtleties of discrimination. You can see it. And sometimes other people can't. Like they will take a criticism that someone says about a particular person as just kind of like, oh, that person says this person doesn't do great work. But you're the kind of person that will say, why this person doesn't do great work? And you will take account of the person's anything that their intersecting identities would be oppressed by, and you would be like, oh, you're that person in the room that would say, oh, do you think this person is not a good candidate because they're a woman, because they're Black, because they're a person of color, because they have different abilities? You're the person who kind of calls those things to the table, because I think you're a person who doesn't allow power to just exist. Wow. Yeah, in many ways, you are being considered someone who is a liberator. You do not sit there and legitimize discrimination. That's what I keep hearing. Like you're that person who, yeah, you're quite visionary, meaning you have the capacity to see in others what other people, because of conventionality, that's what Spirit's giving me some big words. Because in a conventional sense, there's always people who are considered the leaders or people who are chosen. You're the person who kind of sits in a room and says, well, I want to challenge that. I actually think other people too can hold these positions. It's not saying I'm going to just choose somebody based on their intersecting identity, but I want to also make sure that this person gets a fair shake. So you implement that. You don't use it for personal gain, your power. And the star that you are is one of the vision. Eagle woman, right? High up in the sky, circling, looking, observing. And your vision you take seriously. You hold yourself accountable. Spirit is saying that many people are attracted to you because of this. It's a very alluring quality you have, group number 2. They're saying you tend to attract people who want to know your power. Maybe there's something very sensual about you. Some of you may be Scorpio, some of you just may be a water sign in general. Water signs tend to have a little bit of a mysterious sensuality about them. And it doesn't mean if you're not a water sign, you could definitely be other signs. You could have like some very interesting Pluto placements in your natal chart too. But what that means is there's a certain kind of mystery that you hold. You don't really sit there and tell people why you're thinking what you're thinking or how you're seeing what you're seeing. You just put it out on the table. And so, I think you've had to learn over the years, group number 2, about the people who are attracted to your energy. Because you're something new. You're something different. Some people would in the past call you exotic. And I think those were things at first you might have said, oh, is that a compliment? But after a while, you didn't really take it as such because you require now that people get to know you. If they're curious about you, then they must get to know you. They must ask the questions and get the answers they need, but not at your expense. Not at the expense of you having to accommodate their curiosities without being respected for who you are. You're also very creative. And I think that's something that has to do with your vision. So I'm getting here that some of you, some of you may work for organizations and projects, a lot of you tend to do things that people are always surprised by. Like, in addition to the work you do, you're an artist. You might be someone who does ceramics on the side, or you might be someone who paints. And all of this is kind of in a way self-taught. And people are always surprised because they'll be working with you for a few years, and then you'll pop out and be like, oh, you guys, I'm going to show a couple of pieces at this gallery, and we're going to have a little opening, and you would invite people, and people are like, wow, I didn't know that you dabbled in art like this, where it's being featured in a gallery, because I think you're kind of humble. You're just like, yeah, I taught myself how to do this. But the way in which you teach yourself, group number 2, things come out very masterful. There's not a lot of ways that you present yourself as an amateur. And this fascinates people, how you take that vision and you implement it in many areas of your life. And so the star you were meant to be, group number 2, is that of not only a visionary, but of a master. You're very masterful. And you're willing to let your intuition guide you towards the things that you want to learn. You're constantly learning here, which fascinates people. No matter how old you get, no matter how many degrees you have, you're constantly dabbling in something new. That's what you would use the word dabble. But other people would say, whatever they put their mind to do, they achieve, group number 2. And people love this about you. They're always expecting, if you say, oh, you know what, I brought a video camera, I think I'm gonna do some film classes, people will expect very soon that you will do a documentary or a movie. They're like, I'm not surprised. In that way, it's so funny. You're one of those people that gets a large turnout to all of your showcases, because people are so fascinated with the being of who you are. And maybe Spirit is saying here, it's just a side note before I get your closing message. Spirit is saying here, when you were younger, I don't think you were brought up either in a family or a community that really appreciated your ability to have such an expansive interest. You were always being choose one. Just choose one thing and focus on that. And I think for a moment, maybe when you were really young, that felt a little confining for you. And, Spirit is showing me your ego just kind of sat on a post for a while. And something happened that allowed for your ego to soar. And Spirit is showing me some of you are in different places here. Maybe you still kind of consider the thoughts of others in terms of making yourself a little bit smaller, a little bit more palatable. But Spirit is saying, some of you have already allowed your ego to soar. Others of you let it soar, and then you let it kind of you ground it for a while. And Spirit is saying, if you are in that energy, allow your ego to soar full time. Eagle woman, you're meant to be in the sky. That's what I'm hearing. You're meant to see above us and guide us from the air. Some of you are air signs too. Okay, so let's get your closing message from Spirit. Group number 2, Eagle Woman. I'm just calling you Eagle Woman. Regardless of gender, I mean, if you are not identifying as a woman, you have that eagle medicine, okay? So, what are the closing messages here, Spirit, for Eagle Woman? Birth mysteries. What are you being called to create? Wow, Spirit. And I'm sorry I'm not showing all the cards, you all. When I do these readings, it's just easier for me to hop on and channel the messages, pull a few cards, because it takes a lot and I'm a little busy nowadays. But, this card shows a little baby in a yoni womb, watery yoni womb. And for you, group number 2, this is saying that you must create. That is where you receive your fuel, your energy. It's the fire that that's how you stoke your fire, And it's okay if other people don't understand it. It's okay if people see it as not stable to them, or it's not so grounded. But for you, it's where you stoke your fire. And Spirit is saying very specifically here, some of you really do think that you may have ADHD or something like that because you have so many interests. But Spirit is saying, when you ground in the wisdom of your flight, you will find that you don't need to pathologize this way of who you are. Just ground it. Root yourself in the sky. I don't know why. Group number 1 was, rooted in a more earthly way, but group number 2, you're rooted in the sky. And Spirit says you will see a vision of that if you understand that, in which Spirit is saying, root yourself in the sky. Fly high. Show us what you see. And then create from that. So group number 2, wow, magical, mystical, alluring. And best believe people are highly inspired by that. I know I am. Okay, group number 2, we will let you go and we will sound you out. Thank you for being that star for us. Okay, we are going to go to group number 3. And I'm going to. Okay, group number 3. If you're just joining me here at the timestamp, I am Kamara with the Black Dove Oracle. And this is a channeled message on the star you were meant to be. Group 1 and 2 were very strong, very confident. So group number 3, I don't expect much less or less at all. But let's pick a opening goddess card for you. And thank you all for joining me on these channeled messages. They're different from tarot readings, right? I'm not showing you the cards, but Spirit is guiding me. And I'm just kind of using this opportunity to share my channeling gifts. So group number 2, you got Morgan Le Fay. Morgan Le Fay is commonly remembered as the enchantress, half-sister of King Arthur. She is, in fact, the great queen goddess, ruler of the mystical island of Avalon, the fortunate island of the blessed dead, sometimes equated with the ancient Irish war goddess Morgan. She is the Celtic death goddess. As Morgana Feta, she is the controller of destinies and knows the fate of each person. She is noted for her healing powers, her knowledge of healing plants, her prophetic vision. Like a shaman, she is a shapeshifter and has the ability to take many forms. Morgan Le Fay represents a deep place of healing magic within each of us, center where wisdom and healing flow even in moments of death. The ambivalence of which she is traditionally represents echoes our own fear of her deep and ancient wisdom. Wow. There is so much there, group number 3, in terms of who you are. Some of you, and this might be very specific, you come from a very powerful family, just ancestrally. You have a very either royal or very powerful, like your family, your lineage is masterful in some way. It may be like they're masterful healers or herbalists. Take it where it resonates. So you may come from a long line of people who were very successful in whatever it is your family's known for, group number 3. For others of you, you have tapped into a particular kind of way of healing that is almost world renowned. If it is not world renowned right now, most likely, group number 3, Spirit is telling me this will be your star in the sky, your healing powers. Some of you do shamanic work. Others of you are herbalists. Especially, there's some people, Spirit is pointing out, might be herbalists of your particular culture. So your culture may have specific plants and I'm hearing spices for whatever reason, plants and spices, maybe medical concoctions that they do that maybe your family is even or someone in your family a long time ago might have been well known for their healing abilities, and you are being seen. And this is very specific. You are being seen, Spirit is saying, by people in your community, maybe people worldwide, as a reincarnation of that ancestor in your family in terms of your abilities. Group number 3, your wisdom. For some of you, you may be interested in the 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 practices of death, meaning you may work in some kind of medical field that really touches a lot on death. So you could be a coroner. I'm just taking where it resonates. Some of you may be interested in death doula. You may be in oncology. There's something that you specifically do that may have to do with the death process. And that's just for a few of you, but Spirit said to mention it. Your wisdom group number 3, Spirit is pointing out, is highly ancient. And in fact, people in the modern world sometimes do not know where you get your wisdom and knowledge from. They feel like it is of a past world. Very interesting. Yeah, you are spoken about a lot behind closed doors. You know, people are in amazement and wonderment and also curiosity. You know, you get the range of it, group number 3, because I also believe that people sometimes are not sure how to hold your gifts. In the past, or maybe even currently, Spirit is saying, you may have been demonized. Maybe people are trying to call you a witch, or you know, some kind of way in which they don't understand how it is you know what you know. But quite literally, I think you are a student. In many ways, you are so devoted, so humble when it comes to your lifelong learning. Very similar, I think, to group 2 in some ways. But it's very different here. I feel like when you tap into learning, you're kind of tapping into the past. You're learning. It very much is gifted from your ancestors. And sometimes I think people can accuse you of being sometimes unwilling to really share how you know what you know, and maybe even some people will say it's arrogant. I don't know. There's somebody here, and Spirit is pointing out, and you might even feel this, group number 3, that feels like you should teach them what you know. And you're like, you know, I don't think you really get that is part of your mission. Yeah. I think you will teach who you want to teach, who you think is worthy of teaching. Maybe that's the arrogance part, that Spirit says somebody is like, you're not going to sit up there and set up shop and just let anyone come and sit down in front of you, especially if they don't respect the medicine, if they don't respect how your family has over the years in whatever, take it where it resonates. It might have been they don't respect how your family or your culture has really worked to perfect these modalities. You're not that kind of person that's just going to sell it out to whoever. And so for you, I think that, and this is very specific, but someone in group number 3, you were really holding the ancient medicine to the community in which that community held and birthed it and made it and created it. So you are really maybe prioritizing teaching people from your community or teaching people from your family how to feather this medicine. And you're not putting it out on the open market like, oh, hey, you know, come and learn this. There's something about your regards to what you do is sacred. You're not going to, I remember like old people in my family would say, throw your pearls to swine. It's just a saying of throwing your pearls to somebody who will just eat anything. And so in many ways, the people of your community or your family, because some of you might come from a big family. I don't know why Spirit is saying that, but for others of you, this is a culture, a community And you, group number 3, are seen as a liberator because you're different. You're not, I'm hearing for some of you, if you come from a community of color, you're not there trying to colonize what your family has built up or your community has built up. You're holding it in a special way, and people are really grateful for that, because maybe there's been many ways in which the family's wisdom or the community's wisdom has been taken advantage of, or you've witnessed that happen to other people's knowledge base, whether it's family, culture, community. Yeah. You're also seen as a queen. You have some similar, there's a thread that's running between all of these groups. You're seen as someone who really is protective of the community, of your family, your lineage's knowledge and wisdom. And people get intimidated by that. There's not many people, maybe even this is going to get into gender, but not many women who feel strong enough to stand up to some of these more patriarchal systems that feel like they should have access to everything, like they deserve access to everything. Yeah, you're not going to compromise the integrity and the honesty in how you work. You're not here to serve. I'm really getting that some of you, and this is just going to be so specific, but you may have some kind of plant medicine or some kind of traditional medicine that maybe pharmaceutical companies are coming to your family to see if they can get recipes. I don't know. There's something there, and you're kind of holding your ground. Let me know in the comments if some of these more specific things are resonating. You're taking the time, group number 3, to write down formulas, to write down family history, cultural history. You truly are, many people are saying, in the image of a certain ancestor. It could have been a grandmother, it could have been a grandfather, an uncle. I don't know. There's somebody in your family who was really well known, and people just really, they smile at the way that you have continued on this wisdom and held it. In many ways, again, you are seen even as a mystic because they see you channeling the wisdom of this ancestor. And by the way, there are a few people who are very attracted to you. I think this attractiveness through all the groups, I think there's a sense of the attractiveness not coming so much always from the physical, although you may be very good looking, beautiful flowing hair, just your ability to, be in goddess energy and goddess flow. But people are really attracted to your power, to your sense of strength. And you don't exploit it. Your divine feminine, you don't exploit that energy either. It just shows up as naturally who you are. And in many ways, you refuse for your community, your family, the traditions to become victim to capitalism, I hear. Like you're just like, no, we are not going to do it the way maybe you've seen other people fall, group number 3, because they didn't stand up the way they needed or protected the wisdom the way they needed to. So Spirit's closing messages for you, group number 3, because, again, it says sweet waters. Sensuality, romance, enjoyment, fertility, balance. Yeah, there's something here. Some of you, if I didn't mention it, might be midwives. Maybe midwifery was passed down through the family. And maybe you yourself are getting ready to have a baby. Or maybe, I don't know, there's something there. Take it where it resonates, you all. But there's something about you having this knowledge and wisdom and also using it for yourself. People see you as a beautiful, happy mother, or they will see you as that. They see that the way that you practice, it's for you too. It's for your family too. It's not just a business. So, anything else, Spirit, before we close it out? Yeah. Mother of the salt waters, passion, wild love, open your heart, let love in. So, Spirit is saying, here, group number 3, that you may have detractors, you may have people who feel like you're holding some kind of wisdom hostage, but you know in your heart that you want the wisdom to be sustainable and to benefit the people that it created it. And in some ways you have to protect it, and in other ways you can share some of its wisdom. I think you're very balanced that way. But Spirit is saying here, you will have a bit of a reputation, and it's okay, because that is your star. That is who you were meant to be, a protector of this knowledge and this wisdom. So, group number 3, let's release you and your reading and your guides and ancestors here. And I want to thank you all for supporting this channel, supporting different ways in which I'm trying to figure out I want to make offerings. And I do have some things that are coming up that I want to announce, deeper ways for us to connect. And they're all coming. You know, I had to let my birthday come. I had to sit in the energy of like what's moving through me. So I want to thank you all. It's always a beautiful pleasure to channel, to read, to be in community with those who resonate with the way that I read. If you like any of this, please give it a thumbs up. Please consider subscribing. And until the next time, I will say goodbye. Take care, my honeys.